Warning signs. Alberta's 2025 referendum could tear at Canada's unity and national identity. Canada is standing on a dangerous ledge. Just months after Mark Carney replaced Justin Trudeau as Prime Minister following the April 2025 snap federal election, tensions are flaring in Alberta. Premier Danielle Smith has taken concrete steps toward a potential referendum that could see the province demand a dramatic redefinition of its relationship with Ottawa, or even consider a path to outright separation. While Smith continues to insist that she wants fairness, not fragmentation, the legal changes she has enacted are laying the groundwork for one of the most explosive political moments in modern Canadian history. At the heart of the issue lies a deep and growing resentment among many Albertans. They feel alienated from a federal government that, in their view, takes their energy wealth while imposing regulatory and environmental burdens that threaten the province's economic future. Many in Alberta see themselves as subsidizing the rest of the country, particularly provinces like Quebec and the Maritimes, through equalization payments that drain billions from Alberta's economy. For years, this simmering discontent stayed under the surface, but now it's boiling over. The passage of Bill 54, which significantly lowers the threshold for initiating citizen-led referendums, has changed everything. Where it once took over 600,000 signatures to launch a province-wide vote, now just 177,000 can trigger what could become a defining moment in Canadian history. The Alberta government insists the move is about empowering citizens, but critics see it as a thinly veiled push towards secessionist brinkmanship. Some even fear that Premier Smith is using popular discontent as a political weapon to extract greater concessions from Ottawa, or worse, to ignite a separatist wildfire that could spiral beyond control. Mark Carney, Canada's new Liberal Prime Minister, has walked into the middle of this crisis just weeks after winning a minority government. With deep roots in Alberta and a reputation as a measured economist, Carney has taken immediate steps to ease tensions. He has scrapped the federal consumer carbon tax, offered targeted tax relief, and introduced legislation aimed at eliminating barriers to interprovincial trade. Yet his efforts, while notable, may not be enough to stem the tide. The mood in Alberta is no longer just about policy, it's about identity, pride, and control over one's destiny. Adding fuel to the fire are voices behind the Free Alberta Strategy, a political manifesto calling for Alberta to assert greater sovereignty by withdrawing from federal programs like the Canada Pension Plan and replacing the RCMP with a provincial police force. Figures like Rob Anderson and Barry Cooper have become champions of this movement, arguing that Alberta deserves the same level of autonomy as Quebec. Danielle Smith has echoed many of these demands, positioning herself as a defender of provincial rights rather than a separatist, but the lines are increasingly blurred. The potential consequences of a referendum are staggering. Even if Alberta votes only to pursue more autonomy, the message to the rest of the country will be clear. National unity is no longer a given. A vote of this nature could set off a chain reaction, with other provinces re-examining their role in confederation. Worse still, it could trigger economic instability. Investors may grow wary of a Canada that appears fractured and uncertain. Major infrastructure projects could stall. Tensions between provinces could deepen, weakening our collective ability to tackle national challenges like healthcare, climate change, and Indigenous reconciliation. One particularly thorny issue is the status of Indigenous peoples in Alberta. Treaties signed between First Nations and the Crown are federal responsibilities. If Alberta moves toward greater autonomy or independence, what happens to those commitments? Indigenous leaders have warned that they were never consulted in these discussions and would not consent to being governed by a breakaway provincial regime. Any referendum that fails to include their voices could spark legal and constitutional challenges, further complicating an already volatile situation. Premier Smith has attempted to ease fears by launching the Alberta Next panel, a listening initiative aimed at collecting public feedback. Yet critics argue this is more about political optics than genuine engagement. Many believe the UCP government has already made up its mind and is simply laying the groundwork for a public mandate. If the referendum proceeds, there is no guarantee it will stop at autonomy. The pressure to deliver results could push the province toward deeper confrontation with Ottawa, especially if the federal government is seen as slow or dismissive in its response. Carney, for his part, is trying to strike a careful balance. He knows that acting too forcefully could inflame separatist sentiment, but doing too little may make him appear weak or disconnected. His government has proposed national energy infrastructure reforms and new federal-provincial negotiations, but Smith's supporters argue these are too late and too limited. Carney must find a way to convince Albertans that their voices are being heard, without encouraging other regions to make similar demands or eroding the authority of Parliament. What makes this moment particularly dangerous is how quickly public sentiment can shift. Polls show that outright support for Alberta's independence is still under 30%, but support for holding a referendum is significantly higher. If the question is framed around fairness, autonomy, or fighting for Alberta's future, many more voters may rally behind it. And once the wheels of a vote are in motion, the forces unleashed may be hard to contain. The risk isn't just about what Alberta does, it's about how Canada as a whole responds. The stakes are enormous. A vote in Alberta could either renew federalism in Canada or expose its fatal flaws. It could prompt the federal government to modernize its relationship with the provinces or cause a fundamental rupture. Carney and Smith are two very different leaders, with different visions for the country, but both now carry a historic burden: preserve the nation or preside over its unraveling. The next few months will determine whether Canada emerges stronger from this test, or whether it begins to unravel at its seams. In the end, Alberta's growing push for a referendum is not just a story about one province. It is a national reckoning. It forces all Canadians to ask what kind of country we want to be. Can we create a federation that respects differences while holding together? Can our political leaders rise above partisanship to deliver a shared vision for the future? Or will regional frustrations boil over into something we can no longer contain? The warning signs are there. The question is whether we're willing to read them in time.